Hello guys, this is Navin Reddy. In this video, we'll solve this problem here. Now this is the pattern here. Now, if your question is why we should solve all this pattern while learning Java is, when you talk about Java, so if, any programming language in that matter, so if you talk about C programming or Java, so we have two things. One is the syntax and second is the logic. So while you learn all the syntax, well, you remember only syntax, right? So where you struggle is the logic. So to increase your logic, you can solve these patterns. So this is not the ultimate step, but this is the beginning you can start with. Or this is the beginning for you. So let's start with the pattern. So this you have this pattern here. So if you focus on this pattern, so we have a 1 here, a 0, 1, and then 1, 0, 1, then 0, 1, 0, 1, and this goes on. So basically, it's a pattern where you have number of rows and number of columns. So if you say this, so this is your first row. This is your first row, first column element. Second row, first column element, and then second row, second column element. Now, before printing this, what we can do is we can just print stars. So before going to this 0 and 1, we'll print stars. So we'll print one star here. So instead of all this number, we'll try to print star. So once you complete that task, and then we'll try to convert this into 1 and 0. For that, let me go back to my NetBeans. So in NetBeans, to do this, whenever you have to print a pattern, something in that way, let me draw that pattern here also just to make it more effective. Uh-oh. So we'll say star. Okay. So we'll draw those pattern here. So we'll say it is 1, we have 0 and 1, and we have 1, 0, 1, we have 0, 1, 0, 1, and lastly we have 1, 0, 1, 0, and 1. So this is the pattern here, right? Now, before this, let's print all the stars. So in order to print star, your task should be, we have to print rows and we have to print in columns. So to count the number of rows, to count the number of columns, we require some, what do you say, a counter. So what we'll do is we'll say int I comma int j. So this will be your counter. Just to, yeah. Okay. So this I and j will become our counter. Okay. Now, so once you got this counter, we'll use a for loop. Whenever you try to print a for loop, we have to use the outer for loop. So this for loop is responsible to count the number of rows, and the inner for loop which we'll be using there will be for number of columns. So we'll start this for loop by 1 and we'll end it at 5. So since we have 5 rows, we have to start with 1 and we'll finish at 5. Now, this is the outer loop which is responsible to count the number of rows. Now, what we'll do is we'll use an inner loop which is responsible to count the number of columns. So we'll say j equal to 1, j less than equal to 5, and j plus plus. Now, see, if you start with I and end at 5, it means you will be printing number of columns as 5. So, number of rows as 5. So, this is here which we will be using as to count the number of rows, and this loop will be for columns. But if you use this one, which is 1 to 5, it will print a box structure because we'll be printing 5 columns every time. Okay, so if I print here, so let's say S out, in double quotes, if I print star, that's what we want to print now. And if I use this, so it will print star. But let me just run this. So how to run? So shift F6. Okay, it will take some time. Okay. So if you run this, you can see everything is on the same line. It's because we are using something called as print. So whenever you want to print on new line, so what I want, after printing the first row, it should come to new line. So after this loop, what we can do is we can simply say out tab just to get a new line here. And now if you run this, you can see it's a box structure. Now why we are getting this box structure is simply because we are printing the number of columns as 5. What I want is, for the first row, it should print only one element. For the second row, it should print only two elements. So for that, we'll finish it at I. So if your I value is 1, that is your first row, it will print only one column. If the second row, it will print the number of columns as 2. And now if you run this, and that's your output, right? So this is what we want. But hold on, not stars. We want numbers, right? We want something in this format. So for this, what we can do is, see, for sure, this is your first row, first column. So if I add 1 and 1, so first row, first column, 1 and 1 plus 1 is 2. Okay, so whenever you have 2, it is 1. So for this, your row number is 2, your column number is 1, right? So it becomes 2 plus 1 is 3. Okay, odd number. So odd number is 0. What about this? This is 2 plus 2, which is 4. 4 number is 1, which is even number is 1. So if you find the logic here, so whenever you add these row number and column number, if it is even number, you should print 1. If it is odd number, you should print 0. Right? That's the logic. So what we can do is, before printing this, we'll say if I plus j, okay, so if this addition mod 2 is equal to 0, that's an even number, you need to print 1. Okay, in else, we'll print the same thing, but I will be printing here 0. Okay, so if we have even number, it will print 1, odd number will print 0. Simple. And now if we run this, that's the pattern we wanted, right? So that's the answer. Cool. So this is how we need to print this pattern here. Okay, this which is this pattern. So that's it from this video. We'll see the next pattern in the next subsequent tutorial. So thanks for watching, and do subscribe for further videos.